All right. Thank you so much for taking your time this evening to join me. I am extremely excited about this event for several reasons, not the least of which is that I probably have spent collectively somewhere around 200 or 300 hours just working on the features I'm going to roll out to you tonight. But before we get into that, because one thing that, as you all know, I'm very passionate about, that is sales. And I don't want to get into the instant quote tool and show you all this technical stuff that we did that I believe is really incredible without first getting some context for why it matters. Because no matter how good our tool may be, that doesn't really matter unless that converts into sales numbers for you. And so if you get our tool and you're not submitting more deals as a result, then you're just wasting your money. It doesn't matter how good the tool is. And so I just want to talk to you today about the sales flow. And I did a series of videos on YouTube about 2 or 3 months ago called Directing the Sales Flow. And I'm such a huge proponent of understanding the sales flow. There is a flow to the sales process. And what I want to talk to you about today really is nothing short of a complete change or reversal of the way you sell merchant services, whether that's in the field or over the phone. And what I designed the instant quote tool to really accomplish was to totally turn that entire process on its head and make it a completely different experience for you. But much, much, much more important than that, to make it a different experience for the merchant, for the business owner. Now, I've been out in the field, I've tested it, I've used it, I've talked to dozens and dozens of salespeople that are using the tool in the field successfully, even before our launch of the new features. And so that's really what's helped me to design the new features. And I want to talk to you today about how you can use the instant quote tool and to change the sales flow. So let's start off by talking about the current sales flow. So you're selling credit card processing services. How does this process usually work? Well, this is going to be pretty familiar to you. The first thing that happens is you meet the prospect. Now, this could be you walk in. This could be you called them. This could be you called and set an appointment, and then you walked in. Whatever your prospecting strategy is, it starts off by you meeting the prospect. This is normally followed by some small talk, and many times this is rather awkward. There'll be some small talk. It's usually, obviously filler, and it's just you killing time before you get to the sales process. And the merchant recognizes that, you recognize it, and so there's that small talk. But again, I've been out in the field lately, and I know that a lot of times that can be a little awkward. By the way, hold on here. Let's see. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you let me know in the comments? I had a couple people saying that they can't hear me. Let's see. In the comments, let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay, good. Let's see. Good. Okay, great. I'm sorry. I just wanted to double check. All right, good. So let's see here. All right, yeah. All right, so we're good. Okay, good. So anyway, you have this small talk, which is usually very awkward. And, you're fumbling around. And at some point, what do? I think all of you on here could probably answer this question without even me asking, but I'm going to ask anyway because I'm just curious. So over in the comment section, over to the right, what do you do next? What happens next in the sales process? You meet the prospect, you small talk. What do you do next? Somebody put in the comment bar and just type out a comment over to the right and tell me what you do next. What happens next? Okay, let's see what everybody is saying over here. Okay. Good. All right. So building expectations, talking about the business. Again, more kind of a small talk. Now you're directing the small talk more about your business, more about what services that you provide. But at some point, you're going to have to do something. Yeah, there you go. Everybody's getting it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to have a very awkward transition, and you're going to ask for the statement. Okay, so this is what most of you are going to do. Now, again, definitely there's going to be some filler in there. And again, I'm chalking that up to small talk. You're going to talk about, expectations, your business and all that. But at some point in this process, you're going to have to get down to business. And when you get down to business, in most cases, 90% of the time, that means that you are, by the way, asking there a couple people, Ask them what keeps them up at night. Good one, Mike. So you're going to ask them some questions, but eventually you're going to ask for that statement. Now, let me talk about this for a second because this is a huge problem. I got into the merchant services industry over 8 years ago. Since that day, this has been the number one problem in the industry by a mile. Like it's such a huge problem that it makes all the other problems seem minor in terms of selling merchant services. Here is the problem, okay? Let me explain this. If I had $100 in my bank account and I went to the bank and said I would like to withdraw $1,000, okay? They are probably not going to allow me to do that, are they? No, because I've only got $100 in there and I'm trying to withdraw $1,000. Now, here is what happens for you when you ask for the statement. You have zero trust built up, maybe a little bit of rapport. Depending on your sales ability, you've got some rapport. They like you. They think you're an interesting person, but they really don't trust you yet. You just don't have anything there. If you got a nice business card, that helped a little bit, And so here you've got a situation where you've got, $100 of trust, and you're trying to ask them for their credit card processing statement, which is like trying to withdraw $1,000 in trust from the trust bank. And it just doesn't work very well. And so as I talk to salespeople and I hear their numbers, it's pretty consistent that if they talk to 10 merchants, usually only about 1 or 2 of them is going to provide them with a statement on the first visit. And that's for somebody who's a pretty decent sales rep. And I say, well, what happened to the other 8 or 9, Well, what happened is they got to a point where they ran out of small talk, they ran out of talking about whatever, and they asked for the statement. And the merchant either said no because they don't trust them or don't like them, something like that, or because they just don't have a statement, it's at their accountant's or it's, whatever, it's an online statement, they just didn't have one. And at that point, then, the rep really has nowhere to go. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute, but let's assume that you do get the statement, right? So best case scenario, you're like, woohoo, I got the statement. All right, I'm really going somewhere with this one. This could be a sale. Well, then what do you have to do next? Now, some of you are really experienced. You are like, merchant services ninjas, and you do your analysis on the spot. Now, I'm going to congratulate you on your ability to do that. But I'm also going to ask you to be honest and say that probably it's not the most professional thing to use a pen and to write on a wrinkly piece of paper and then give that to them as evidence of your savings. So, I get it. You're really good and that's going to really help you. But I think maybe we could leverage technology to make something slightly more professional. But most of you, what you do is you take a dangerous risk and make a humongous waste of time by leaving to send the statement into analysis because you have no idea, you don't understand the statement, it's confusing, and you would rather send it to statement analysis so they can give you something professional so that you can come back. Again, this is a dangerous risk. What if you're never able to get the decision maker into a mood to talk to you again? What if, the analysis comes back and it doesn't have the information that you wanted? What if it takes 3 days to get it and then by that time the prospect forgot who you are? There's a lot of risks in there. It's also a huge waste of time because now you're going to come back 3 or 4 days later with the analysis and guess what? You are now in a worse position than you were when you got the statement. Let me explain this to you, okay? Do you understand that when a merchant actually hands you a statement, do you understand the amount of trust that they're placing in your hands when they do that? That is huge, huge trust that they're putting in you. And at that moment, what you really want to do is leave so you can come back 3 days later when they don't remember your name. That's a huge risk and it's a huge waste of time, okay? Then you're going to return, you're going to show them the analysis, you're going to try to close the deal again, having to build that rapport all the way back up again from scratch, okay? So, this is not the ideal sales flow. I think we can all agree with that. And again, the funny thing to me is it's even worse on the phone. If you sell on the phone, it's even worse because for you to even get to the point where they're willing to send you a statement, how many of you have ever tried to sell merchant services on the phone and had 7 people tell you they're going to send you a statement and you don't get any of them? You know why? Because you hung up. And once you hang up, you're done. They don't care about you. They don't know you. They don't know who you are. They don't care at all. They're not going to send you the statement. And so this is a terrible, terrible sales flow. So let's see if maybe we can improve upon this just a little tiny bit, okay? So we meet the prospect on the phone or whatever, right? We have our inevitable small talk. In this case, we can very quickly move the small talk into topics that we want to talk about, like credit card processing and the payments industry. Now, instead of asking them for their statement, instead, you would say something like this. Susan, it's been such a pleasure meeting you today. Let me ask you for a huge favor. I just need like 1 or 2 minutes of your time. I have a database of existing merchants just like you, existing businesses just like you. I have a huge database of statements, and I can actually create a really quick savings comparison. I don't need to look at your statement initially. I just want to create a really quick savings comparison to show you approximately what you could save if you went with me, and that way you can go ahead and determine if it's going to be worth your time investment to move forward with a conversation. Does that sound fair to you, Susan? Now, that is something that Susan is going to say yes to probably 7 times out of 10, maybe as much as 9 times out of 10, again, depending on your sales ability and ability to get that rapport. But you're not asking for anything. You're just offering something to Susan. You're offering something to the business owner. Not only are you offering something, but you're not offering them an old, wrinkly, a statement that you've written on. You're like, hey, I'm going to send you this beautiful PDF proposal that's like fancy and it's got my name on it and it's got like information and it's, really nice. And so you're actually offering something, okay? Now, I'll show you this part in a second. This is a really important part of the sales process that I didn't even fully understand myself when I rolled the tool out. My users had to educate me about how to use the tool correctly. So it's amazing, absolutely amazing. But you don't ever really ask for the statement. You just provide 2 opportunities, and I'll show them to you in a second. You just provide them with 2 opportunities to provide you with the statement. You don't even have to ask for it. They will give you the statement. I promise you that if they have the statement, okay, and they like you at all, they are going to give you the statement. You're going to go from getting 1 or 2 statements out of 10 to getting 6 or 7 out of 10. Again, if you are a decent salesperson and, they like you and you understand a little bit of what you're talking about, okay? So you just provide them with opportunities to give you the statement. You don't even have to ask for it. Then you email a simple PDF on the spot that's got all the information that they need to make an informed decision. Then you go ahead and answer their questions. You go ahead and close the deal, and then you can follow up with them. Maybe you didn't close it right there on the spot, but the key thing is, while they were liking you and trusting you and all of that, you were able to go through the entire sales process right there with them. And again, maybe at the end, in your gut, because you're a good salesperson, and you're like, they're not ready to buy. I know they're not ready to buy right now. So maybe you don't ask a closing question, but you're able to say, now here's what I'd like to do with your permission. Susan, I'm going to go ahead and email a beautiful comparison to you. It's got all the information you can need. It's got my company information, my contact information on it. I even put a little note at the bottom for you. Please take a look at this. And I know you're really busy today. I promise you I'm not going to take any more of your time. How does next week on Tuesday sound for me to come back and really review this once you've had a chance to review it in full? So now you can set up that meeting, but now when you come back, hey, they've already got the information, they've already talked to you, they're excited. Now again, in that case, you may want to leave them a summary so you don't leave them pricing, so they don't go back to their current company and try to match it. And I'll show you all that in a minute. But, this is a much cleaner sales flow, okay? Now, last thing we're going to talk about before I show you the sales flow and demo the tool to you is statement workshops. Now, let me make a couple of observations here, okay? If I needed to have heart surgery done and I was choosing a heart surgeon, I would probably pick one that went to medical school. I might even try to pick one that had a little bit of experience with heart surgeries. So if I was a business owner and I was choosing a merchant services salesperson, and of which there are many and they get called constantly about and they walk in all the time, I'm probably going to choose one that has some clue what he or she is talking about. And so a big part of this, and I'll show you in a minute, is going to be training. Now, what I'm going to do is, because I think this is so important, I am going to do workshops. And I'm going to do these workshops because as I go through the tool, some of you might hear something I say and be like, what's he talking about? Or, no, this looks too complicated for me. Now, I've made it absolutely as simple as it could possibly ever be made, okay? We're having it patented. It's so unique. But there's definitely, you still need to understand credit card processing just a little bit in order to sell it. Okay? And if you really want to sell a lot of it, you need to understand it really, really well. So what we're going to do is I am going to do workshops absolutely cost-free if you are a subscriber, even a trial subscriber, which I'll talk about in a minute. I'm going to complete 10 statement analyses where I'm going to have a statement on the screen and I'm going to analyze it using the tool. And I'm going to show you line by line how to do this. I'm going to get different competitors, the big companies that you're going to see out there, show you different ways statements are set up, how you can use the tool in different ways to do that. You're going to understand interchange. You're going to understand surcharge and cash discount programs, which I'll show you in a little bit. And we're also going to, of course, apply sales techniques. And I'm going to walk you through, here's what you would say while you're using the tool at this point. Okay? All right. Now, does anybody have any questions so far while I'm pulling this up here? Let's see. All right. Let's see here. Chadrick, I would love to hear that. You should shoot me an email. I'd love to hear that. All right, so here we go. We're going to dive right in. So the first thing I want to show you is inside of the tool, when you click on training, so I'm at instantquotetool.com. When you click on training, we do have all of these training courses. And so one of the big benefits of doing a 30-day free trial with us is that you get full access to the training and you can go through all the courses. And this is really going to help you to understand things. For those of you that are really experienced, I would highly recommend that you go through the advanced statement analysis training. It is a 2-hour course. I promise you, you will learn something. It will definitely help to educate you about interchange and how it all works. And then, of course, we also have a lot of different things here about how to use the tool, which we're going to be expanding that library significantly this week. The other thing I wanted to show you real quickly, because I haven't had a chance to demo this yet. Again, we're going to get to this screen in a minute on the new version, but I just wanted to show you on the existing version. We do already have the surcharge or cash discount programs represented here, and they do show up on your PDFs and everything. And so you can do a surcharge program. For those of you who don't know what a surcharge is, let me take 2 minutes and tell you what it is, because it's something you probably are going to be hearing about if you haven't already. So one of the things that certain business types like to do, there was a law passed recently and allows them to do this. So you can add a surcharge. In this case, it's a 3.9% surcharge onto the credit card volume. And so there's a difference. There's surcharging and then there's cash discount programs. Surcharging means that you're actually adding a surcharge to all the credit card transactions. A cash discount is pretty much the same thing, but it means you're giving them a discount when they use cash. And that means you can apply it to both credit and debit transactions. And so I'm going to be coming out with a new training course about this in about 3 weeks. So stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to point this out because for those of you that maybe are already selling surcharges, let me know that or email support@instantquotetool.com. We'd be glad to set a program up for you that does have surcharging capabilities. And I'm not going to get too much more into that at this time. Oh, one last thing I was going to show you, and I'll show you this at the end as well. If you go to instantquotetool.com right now, let me log out here. You can click on Start Your Free Trial. Okay, and click on if you're an individual or if you have a team of people or if you're an ISO, but you can click on free trial here. You just put your information in, create your account, and then it's going to take you to a screen for you to enter your payment information, and you're going to get a free 30-day trial. Now that includes even those of you that, if you are already a subscriber, paying subscriber, we've already taken your rate down as of a few days ago from $99 a month is where we started at, down to $29. So we give you a 70% discount. For those of you that are new, or you had it maybe a month ago or whatever, 2 months ago, and didn't get a chance to really use it or want the new version of it, you can start a brand new 30-day free trial right now. Just go there right now, instantquotetool.com, and get your free trial. Now, I say that the new version that I'm going to demo for you tonight, we're going to be putting it up live, and it'll be up live on Wednesday morning. And so you'll have a day to get your program set up and everything like that. But I am going to do that. Now, I don't know how long I'm going to do that for. So if you were already a subscriber before, I'm not sure how long I'm going to give you this deal of letting you go back in and do another free 30-day trial. But I am definitely going to be doing it for at least the next probably week. And so you can go back in and do that for now. Let's see if anybody had any questions here. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, and it's funny too. I did want to mention this because I saw, my business partner and I were talking about it, and he was kind of like, $29, like James, we went from 99 to 29. Is that really a good idea? And I mean, again, like we took everybody that was at 99. We cut our revenue by 70% to do this. This was a really big decision for us. It was a ton of money, and the reason I did it is really simple. I really can't stand my competitors in this space. I think all of their solutions are horrible, and I want to put them all out of business. And so, again, you may think, oh, wow, that's a little harsh. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. I can't stand the tools that are out there. They're ridiculously complicated. There is no reason that you can't do this in the field. So I'm not going to get off on a big rabbit trail, but other than just to say, if anybody's wondering why I took my price down so low, it's because I have a lot of competitors. Well, I don't know a lot. I got 4 or 5 competitors that are doing statement analysis or trying to, and they're just digitizing a process, and I think it's ridiculous and just a total waste of money. So as a result, I decided, let me take my price down 70% and see if we can, slowly, eat away at their subscriber base. So let me show you the new tool. I am so excited about this. I've been working on this nonstop around the clock, and it's really cool. So the process starts as it always did. And by the way, I always say this when I do demos. I know you guys are looking at this going, this doesn't look that great, James. Yeah, it's on a desktop, okay? It's called the Instant Quote Tool. I made it for your phone, all right? Look at it on your phone. It looks amazing. So I didn't really make it to look great on a desktop. It's every single one of these has a totally different view for your mobile device. But anyway, it does work really well on a desktop. It just doesn't really look amazing on a desktop. But anyway, so you start by adding a new prospect. You choose their business type. I'm going to choose a quick service restaurant here. And then you put their name in. So let's say this is, Tony's taco stand. Contact name is Tony. Now you don't have to put this information in. It's just to organize your proposals. So we're going to click Save and Quote, and that's going to bring us up to this little form right here. So this is the form I was talking about when I said that you're going to offer to give them an approximate savings proposal. It's really simple. You just name the statement. You can name it whatever you want. I normally name it the month and year. So let's say it's the January 2017 statement. Then you just ask them and say, hey, Tony, about how much processing volume do you do here at your taco stand? And he's going to say, I do about around 10,000 a month. You say, okay, so you put in 10,000 here. Do you know, Tony, if you do any American Express? Do you take American Express? Yeah, we probably do, about 1,000 in American Express. You put that in. Do you do any PIN debit volume? Yeah, we do another 1,000 in that, Now, the average ticket size, we already have that calculated based on all the other quick service restaurants. But you could ask Tony and say, hey, Tony, our system here is saying that it's probably about a $21 average ticket. Does that sound about right? He's going to say, yeah, that's probably about right. Now you put in the total fee. So you ask him, Tony, how much are you paying roughly to process that 10,000? What are you paying in total fees? And he says, I think we're paying around, $300. Okay. So we've got all of our basic information here, all right? Now, at this point, our system does something that is absolutely ridiculous. No one else in the industry is even thinking about doing what our system just did in those about 1 to 2 seconds. Now, behind the scenes, that 1.5 second thing right there, the first time that I built that algorithm, it took 30 minutes to run. And we now have it down. It does about 3 times as much as it did then, and it now takes 1.5 seconds. So it is ridiculous what this thing did. What just happened behind the scenes is that our algorithm went in and looked at thousands of statements. And it said, okay, we have a taco stand. This taco stand does 10,000 in volume with a $21 average ticket size, and they're paying $300 in fees. And it knows what the American Express volume is and the debit volume. And it looked at all that and said, okay, based on all that, what is this taco stand? What is Tony paying in individual line-by-line fees? Okay? And so it started by calculating interchange with the algorithm that we already had, but we have improved it and sped it up significantly. And so it started with that, and it figured out the interchange. It figured out all this stuff. Now, again, I'm not going to get too complicated today because I want to show you how easy it is to use rather than telling you how complicated it was to develop, even though it was really complicated to develop, and I want to make sure I get that across. But no, seriously, I want to show you how easy it is to use. But it literally went through and figured out the basis points of markup, the per item fee, the pass-through, the monthly fees, the batch fees, everything. And again, you're like, oh, is it always accurate? No, it's not it's not a crystal ball. I mean, we're not actually looking at the statement yet, so I don't know exactly what it is. But the important thing is that we know what the total fees are, and I'm able to use that information to create a statistically probable table of fees so that even if you don't have the statement, you can just click continue. Now, before I get into editing this statement at all, I'm going to tell you the question that you're going to ask Tony right here. This is the first of 2 opportunities for you to get the statement. So you're going to say this to Tony. I'm going to say, and by the way, of course, as I said before, let me just to make myself feel better, let me just show you. So this right here, and again, you can look at my desktop here, but this is how it actually looks on your phone. Okay? So it looks obviously a lot better on your phone. But anyway, all right. So what are you going to say to Tony here? You're going to say, Tony, let me show you this. And you're going to turn your phone around and you're actually going to stand next to Tony and share the screen with him and show him this. And say, Tony, now let me explain what just happened. In this system, we have all of these statements, and a bunch of them are like you. They're smaller quick service restaurants. And what our system did is we looked at all those statements and we figured out that if you are paying $300 in total fees, pretty much we know what the individual fees are that you're paying. And these are all drop downs here, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Don't get scared with all the data here, okay? Trying to keep it simple, but it literally calculated everything. And it figured out probably what he's paying for all these different things, again, based on statements, okay? Again, you can go all the way through. Here's our, interchange, total pass-through, American Express, OptBlue, debit network. I mean, literally it figures out everything, okay? So, we go up here and all that here. And so you're going to say to him, Tony, we were able to go ahead and figure out roughly what you're paying in total fees, and we went through and actually itemized that so that we can do a comparison so you can see how that would compare to what we would, our investment. But let me ask you a question. I can just click continue right here and keep moving forward and just give you an approximate savings proposal, but it would actually be more accurate if you had a statement handy. Would you like me to do this using the statement, or just click continue and kind of give you an approximate number? Now, at that point, that's kind of your soft sell on getting the statement. Probably about 30% of the time, they're going to say, yeah, hold on a second. And they're going to go grab a statement because you're showing them something. They're seeing it. They're like, okay, they think I'm paying this. What am I really paying? And a lot of it's almost like a negative incentive for them because they realize you've got this technology solution and they're scared that you're going to try to dupe them. And so they want to make sure that the numbers match up. Okay? So, let's assume, for argument's sake here and for sake of time, that Tony does bring you the statement at this point. And again, that happens a lot. In fact, to be honest, it happens a lot even at the previous screen when you ask them if they do American Express. And they'll be like, oh, how much American Express volume do I do? Hold on a second. And they'll go get the statement. So you're going to have half the statements at this point anyway. So here's what it does. And this is what's really amazing. So the algorithm already predicted all of the fees, but it doesn't stop with that. What happens next is now it's going to dynamically update the fees as you enter information into the statement. Now, why is this so important? Well, the reason this is so important is because maybe the statement is confusing, right? How many of you have seen a statement that was confusing? I have. I mean, I would say I'm probably one of the top experts in the industry at this point, just because of having to build all this algorithm and all this crazy stuff at reading statements and understanding interchange. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that understands that subject matter better than I do at this point. But you know what? I regularly see statements that I have to do a double take. And I'm like, wait a second, what? They're confusing. And so rather than you having to enter everything from the entire statement, you just enter some information. Whatever information you enter is going to make it more accurate because it's going to dynamically update everything. So let's say that you actually got the statement and you're like, oh, you know what? He's actually at 40 basis points. Now watch this. See how the per item fee right now says 11 cents? Well, if we take this and change it to 40 basis points and hit tab here or click on this one here, look at what happened. It did 2 things. Number one, it said, well, if they're at 40 basis points, they're probably not an 11-cent transaction fee because I know they only pay $300 in fees. And so we just automatically change it to 8 cents. Now, again, is it actually 40 and 8? I don't know, but that's closer. It's more accurate. Okay, so now you look and you're like, oh, wait, no, it's not 8. They're actually at 10 cents, right? Well, you did that. Now it changed our pass-through a little bit, and it took our pass-through down a little bit. Okay, now it did a bunch of other things behind the scenes that you can't see at this point, but it also edited things like the American Express per item and basis points, the PIN debit, and there's a huge algorithm that runs, it's called a recursive algorithm, and it just runs over and over and over and over again in the background about 50 times during that, whatever, just a millisecond of time. It runs over and over again, and it runs through and figures out what's the most statistically probable thing that would change on the statement based on that information. So now we know our total pass-through here, 171.88 is what we have listed here, okay? Now, the total pass-through, you're like, James, what's the total pass-through? Well, I'm going to click on the section down here, and again, we're going to have workshops on this. You don't really need to do anything with it. I'm just going to show it to you so you understand kind of what it is. So the biggest component of the pass-through is definitely going to be the interchange. And so you can see here we have an interchange of 119.27. The problem here that we run into is that most statements don't actually split the interchange up into its own little section. Usually if they have the interchange section, they also usually include things like the network access brand usage fees, the assessments, the like basis points of assessment. They almost always, if they have American Express, OptBlue, they almost always include those in the interchange section, and many times they include the debit network access fees as well. So these are all just pass-through. In other words, the pass-through is the part that you don't make any money on. It's actually pass-through from the banks, from the card brands, from American Express, and from the PIN debit networks. Okay, and so watch what happens though with this. It's really interesting. So let's say that on the statement they have the pass-through section, which they normally do, and you see that the pass-through section is actually 190, whatever. So it's 190. So you do that, hit tab here. Well, what happened was it just took this up to 190 down here and it changed the interchange. So you can see that it's dynamically updating everything as we go, which is why I can leave that closed and you really don't have to do anything with it at all. Okay? So the other thing though is, what if you looked at that statement and, when you looked at the statement, you realized that their total fees were actually 346. And this is an important one because every statement you can usually find the total fees on it. So we're going to put 346, 51 just to be, and then hit save here. So we put these total fees in at 346.51. That's what was actually on the statement, and that updated some different things. It updated our total pass-through, it took our interchange up a little bit here, and it did some other things that I'll show you in a minute. So we now have all of this information updated here, and everything's in and looking good. Now we go down to our other fees, and we can change this if we want. Maybe they don't have a PCI compliance fee, and so that'll make some adjustments. American Express, you can see where we're at with that. Now I'm going to show you, I'll go back and show you that in a second. I won't do that right now. Okay, so we've now added a few things here. Again, you can change things. You might go down through Visa. Let me show you how this looks on a phone because it makes a lot more sense on a phone. Your Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, we have that set up where you can now put in your volume and transactions. And this is also an important one because you don't have to do this, but if you have the statement, it is nice to actually have the volume and transactions for, again, for PIN debit, Amex as well. But for Visa, MasterCard, Discover, it is nice to have those actually match up exactly. So our algorithm guessed that if they're doing 10,000 in total volume and 1,000 in Amex, 1,000 in PIN debit, we guessed off of the statements we have that probably about 6,000 of it is Visa, but it might actually be 6,300, and they might actually only have 284 transactions for Visa, And then you can always click this down arrow and go down and see the per item fee, the basis points of markup, the average ticket, and so you can change all of those individually by card brand as well, but I leave it, collapsed because I think it's pretty rare that you would need to change that. So, let's assume we made some changes here. And now we're going to go ahead and click continue. Before I do that, let me just see if I have any questions over here. I think I had a couple. Oh yeah, just to be really clear, guys, if you go to instantquotetool.com right now and sign up, it's going to look exactly the same as it used to. This version is going to be live on Wednesday morning. So I wanted to do the demo first, and then that's going to be live on Wednesday morning, just so you know, in case you're over there trying to follow along with me. So now what we're going to do is, let me just go back to the desktop view real quick here. So we're back in the desktop view. Now we're going to go ahead and click continue. And a couple things are going to happen here behind the scenes when we click continue. First of all, it is going to refigure out the interchange based on the new information provided. Now, this is going to be one of the most difficult things for me to explain. So if you were watching Netflix and watching this at the same time, can you do me a favor and pause Netflix for 1 second? Because this is really kind of a little bit complicated. I need to explain it, okay? So it's actually not complicated at all. It's just a problem that everybody's been doing it the wrong way for like 10 years. So in our industry, okay, when you get a statement and you send it into statement analysis, the statement analysis department does something that is just ridiculously stupid, and I don't know any other way to put it. What they do is they look at the statement and they see what the total interchange is on the statement, right? And they look at it and it says, oh, the total interchange is $159 in this case, right? Well, what they do is when they do the analysis, they're like, well, if it was $159 last month on their statement, then that means if they go with us, it's still going to be $159, okay? Now, there's a major problem with that assumption. That assumption is absolutely, completely wrong. And I can prove it, okay? I have probably looked at somewhere north of 700 statements over the last 6 months, and I have been tracking it in over 65% of those statements. The interchange was not correct on the current statement. And it wasn't correct for several reasons. Either number one, the merchant was processing in a way that was causing a bunch of downgrades that should never have happened in the first place. They were, their dues and assessments were marked up over cost, whatever. There's a bunch of different things that were causing these problems. Many times, you're going to see interchange where it literally is just marked up. Like, it's just marked up. I saw one the other day where every single interchange line item category had 40 basis points of markup. 40 basis points of markup. It was just marked up. It wasn't like separated. It was just marked up. And what happened was, it was kind of funny actually. It was one of our larger clients that uses our tool as a branded solution. They sent me the statement and they're like, we can't figure this thing out. Like, why can't we show any savings? We don't, whatever. And I looked at it and I was on the phone with them when I looked at it. When they sent me the email, literally in about 3 seconds, I said, oh, they're marking up interchange. And they're like, how did you know that? And I said, well, unfortunately for me, because of all this work, I have almost the entire interchange table memorized. And so I looked at the statement and immediately saw the first interchange category. I knew what percentage it was supposed to be, and it was 40 basis points higher than that. And so as we went through it, they were all marked up 40 basis points. So here's the thing, okay? The statement analysis department is going to catch that 0% of the time. And that's a big problem for you because it's additional savings that you can show the merchant. Okay? And so we all know that if you can show some additional savings, it gets a little easier to close the deal, doesn't it? So what our tool does here is it's an amazing thing. It actually shows you a little message down here that says how likely it is that it's correct. Okay, so here's the current. So on the current statement, it's 159, and that's not likely. Okay, and there's different levels. It goes very likely, less likely, not likely, and incorrect. Okay, now we are wanting to propose that interchange is actually going to be $131 for this merchant, and that is, guess what? Very likely. Now, there's a couple things you could do here. You might say, I'm not comfortable with showing that $28 in savings, so I'm just going to go here and go 159, which is not likely, but hey, it's the same, so I'm going to be really, really conservative here because I think I'm still going to show savings. You click save, and then you click compare. Okay? Now, that's not advisable in my opinion because you got it at $131. What makes a lot more sense, and again, this is for those of you that are green, is just click compare and just move on, okay, and take the savings. The other thing that you can do if you're a little bit more experienced or if you go through my workshops, you could scroll down here and look at why is the interchange at 131. We didn't pick that number out of thin air. We looked at we did like 7,000 or 8,000 calculations to come up with that number being the most statistically probable number. There is some math behind it, believe me. So why would you change it? Instead, what you want to do is look at the assumptions that created it. So for instance, you ask Tony and maybe say, Tony, I have a question for you. I notice here, I'm going to click adjust. Tony, I noticed that for most small ticket, places like yours, they only do about 5% of their transactions where the card isn't like physically there, like maybe over the phone or something like that or online. What's your situation? And he might say, well, actually, I do 20% of my transactions, card not present. So when I put that 20 in there, and I hit tab, it's going to actually give me a little bar graph, which is going to animate and show me, and it's going to keep it at 100%. And I'm going to click adjust. Well, now It is going to adjust. So remember it was 131, now it's 139. It's still very likely. It didn't mess up any of my numbers down here that I had, but it did adjust down here the interchange table. So for those of you that aren't familiar with our solution, it literally builds an interchange table from scratch based on all of these statements that we have in our system. As a result of that, it's very flexible. It's able to make changes to the interchange table, which is what we just did. And again, you can see there's a bunch of different ways you can adjust the different card types, like downgrade, business, reward, standard. You can do, there's new ones in here that we didn't have before. It's much easier to navigate this. One of the other ones we added that was a big request from users is they wanted to be able to adjust the percentage of regulated check card versus unregulated, because some markets there's more regulated than unregulated. Now again, I'm saying all this and I'm a little nervous because some of you are on here right now going, oh wow, I can't use this tool. Yes, you can. Okay, let me advise you on something. All right, how about instead of you trying to figure that out, maybe you could just trust the algorithm that we built that did 7,000 calculations in 2 seconds and just click compare. So, you can just click compare and move on. You really don't have to do anything with any of this. So you click compare. Let me answer it. So we got any questions over here? Jim, if you're already signed in, you don't need to do anything else. That's correct. Oh, I'm going to talk about tier pricing in just a second, George. Good question. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click compare. All right, and I think I just have one test program. I probably should have added some more, but anyway, here's a program in here. For those of you that have, a bunch of different processors you sell for or whatever, it's going to show you all your programs, your upfront bonus, your residual, your basis points of markup, the transaction fee, and the savings. And you're going to go ahead and click present when you choose the program that you want. Now we still have our detail view up here. I changed the view a little bit. We made it look a little bit smoother, but we have our detail view. We have our summary view. So let me walk you through this real quick. So the detail view doesn't give any information about their current statement other than the savings from it. So it kind of like, their current total fees minus your current total fees. So this is if you didn't get the statement, you're not comfortable doing the side-by-side without the statement, so you're going to give them the detail view. If you have to leave them with something, you may right here want to give them the summary, because the summary one, what it does is a little bit unique. It only it gives them the savings and splits it up, but it doesn't give them any pricing. So that way they can't take it back to their current company and get a cost comparison that way with them and stay with their current company. Now, if you click on the pricing wizard up here, let me just show you what that is. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Okay, and when you click on the pricing wizard, you see that there, this is where you can change your pricing. So in the previous screen that we were at with the comparison, it just comes in at your minimum pricing guidelines for that program. But here's where you can really go through and make individual adjustments. I'm also going to be adding some other stuff to this. I'm going to add some savings calculations and things like that, where you can see how your savings is changing as you're doing this. But for right now, you can just change it. So you're like, okay, 32 basis points. No, that doesn't make any sense. Let's do it at 40 basis points and 5 cents or whatever, and you can change all this stuff. You can also now add a note to the proposal. This is a really nice feature. I'll show you how it looks in a second, but I'm going to put on here, hey Tony, it was great meeting you, and I look forward to working together. So this will now actually print right on the bottom of their proposal. So we're going to go ahead and save this. So now if we go to our detail view and click on the PDF, we're going to get a PDF that's going to look like this. Now, the one that's going to be rolled out on Wednesday morning is not going to be customized with logos or color schemes. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second with what we're rolling out next. But it will have this, and then, of course, at the bottom, it has your note down here. I'll show you. If you go to the summary view and do the PDF, it's going to look like this one here. Okay. Now, the way that the side-by-side looks, I'm actually going to show you the HTML version because it's a little easier for me to explain. So with the side-by-side, I really wanted to do a side-by-side that was very different from what you're seeing in the marketplace for a couple reasons. Number one, I wanted it to look good on a phone. And secondly, I just wanted it to be explained more easily. And so what I learned after making hundreds and hundreds of merchant sales myself is that what you want to really do when you're talking to them is you really want to point out a couple things. Right off the bat, I like to say to them, Tony, I've got some great news for you. It looks like, now the average customer in the industry stays with their processing partner for about, 3 years. Our customers stay a little longer because we do a really good job of servicing them. But even if all you do is stay with me for that time over 3 years, I'm going to be able to save you right to the bottom line over $2,500. And so that's why I have the savings right here at the top with the 3-year savings, because that's the number you want to talk about. Right below that, we have the savings summary. And this is where it just breaks it down by the pass-through. Notice our $20 in savings that we had from our current and then our proposed. Our processing costs, current and proposed. Then other fees, which is like monthly fees, batch fees, and then that shows there. And then the total for this, the total current fees, the total proposed fees, and then the total savings. Down here, it splits up our pass-through with the interchange, the debit network fees, the Amex Op Blue. I did not put the dues and assessments in there. We'll find a way to include that as some kind of a collapsible thing, but I mean, honestly, no one ever looks at that, so I didn't put that in there. Then your processing costs. So here we summarize it by card brand type, but we also have a nice little drop down. So if you really want to see the full view of it, you can just click all these, and it'll give you what you would, this is more of kind of a traditional side-by-side that you would expect with the amount, the current, the proposed, and the savings. It splits it up by markup and per item. So it's a little different than maybe what you've seen in the past, but I really like it. It breaks everything out really nicely. And again, for a phone, it's nice because you can just collapse all these things so you don't have to show them everything at once and kind of overload them with information. Okay, I have got about 5 or 6 more things that I want to talk to you about, but that's it. This is the proposal. Before I take questions, let me just give you one other piece on this, then I'll take questions, and then please stay with me, though. Don't leave, because I've got some other things that are really important I want to tell you, and I really want to get your feedback on in just a minute about the next thing we're going to be doing in like 30 days. So when you're on here, this is the other spot where you get the statement. So if you get here and you still don't have the statement, I still would use the side-by-side. And I know it sounds crazy. Like, how can you do a side-by-side comparison without the statement? Well, because our algorithm predicted what their fees are. And I know that sounds crazy. Some of you are like, wait a second, like you're going to have to process and digest that. And I understand that. I'd be glad to talk to you on the phone, answer your questions. But like, you don't even have to have the statement, and you can do a side-by-side comparison because our algorithm guessed what they're paying individually by line item. So you can just use it like that. And if you do, you get to this point and you're like, here, I can show you our savings. And at this point, you're going to say, now, obviously, as far as the split up of like the savings is accurate, but as far as where those savings, are going to be and exactly, how much each category is going to be of savings, it could be a little bit off because I didn't have your statement. This is based on all the other statements we have. It's a great pitch. It really is going to make sense to the merchant. I've tried it and it really does make sense to them. But at this point you say, I tell you what, while I'm still here, why don't we take another couple minutes and actually really get this thing accurate before I email it to you? Do you have a statement I can take a look at? Now you ask for the statement or give them an opportunity to provide it, and they're going to, of course, give it to you because look how legit you are. Look at this thing. This is amazing. You've got your contact info. You've already emailed them a proposal. Like, this is amazing. Now they're ready to give you the statement. Why? Because you now have trust that you've built up with them. Okay? So, let's see here. Let's see. Okay, good. Does anybody have any other questions here? We already said we don't need. Right. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. So let me get to a couple questions I have for you guys before you jump off. Okay, let me look at my list here. All right. Question number one. How many of you currently sell tier pricing to your merchants? 3-tier, 4-tier, 6-tier, I don't care what it is. By a raise of hands over to the right. You can just over to the right and click a little button to raise your hand. How many of you sell tier pricing currently? And then let me talk to you about what we're doing about that, okay? And kind of what my conundrum is. How many of you sell tier pricing right now today? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, let me put those hands down. Now let me ask another question. How many of you sell Interchange Plus pricing exclusively? You only sell Interchange Plus pricing. Let me see your hands. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Well, all right. That's kind of what I thought. That's even more than I thought. Good night. Okay. So pretty much you're all selling Interchange Plus pricing. All right, good. So that makes that project much less important. So let me just talk about it for 1 second. So here's my problem with tier pricing. If you want to sell tier pricing, there's a really big problem with the solution here, and that is that every processor thinks that tier pricing is something different. And what I mean by that is one processor will say a transaction is qualified, another one will say it's mid-qualified. So I can make something that's like a general solution that's generally accurate based on 3 or 4 different companies, but it's not going to be exact unless you have like the branded solution. If you're an ISO, I can make you a branded solution and make your solution, and then it's of course going to be accurate. I just have to map the interchange to the right category of tier, and I already have done it for somebody, so I know how to do it, but it's very difficult for me to do for the general user population. For those of you that sell interchange plus pricing exclusively and you're like, James, what do I do because my merchants, they are on tier pricing and I need to convert them? It's like the easiest thing ever. All you do is you just go here, put your information in here, you put in the total volume, you put in the Amex volume, you put in the PIN debit volume, you put in their total fees. They're paying, let's say, $350. You hit create. And once you hit create, guess what you do? You click continue. That's it. That's all you do. Because if they're on tier pricing, the only other thing you could do is, if you really want to make it super accurate, you could update some of the stuff. You could update your other fees. And what will happen is, just by process of like elimination, because the algorithm is running dynamically in the background, if you update the other fees, and if you update Amex and PIN debit, and if you do put in the Visa, MasterCard, and Discover volume and transactions, then the pass-through is going to be correct by default. Because the algorithm is going to run in the background and it's process of elimination. If you enter all that information, then the interchange is going to be correct. So you can do a tier to interchange conversion literally with 0 time investment. You just do the same thing that you would normally do. And then you click continue. So, I mean, it's really about as easy as it gets. But I am going to make something for tier pricing. I haven't exactly decided how we want to do it yet. And that's why I wanted to ask that question, to see how important that was to everybody. So does anybody have any questions about that? Kevin, it's going to be, there's no way I could add the cost. Well, let me back up for a second. So, Kevin, when you have a processor, we create something called a program. And again, this is for those of you that haven't used the tool before. The program is going to be exactly accurate to your processor. We literally get your Schedule A from you, and we key in the minimum pricing, the bonuses, the residual split, all of the Schedule A costs, everything, and it calculates your residual and all of that perfectly for you. So that is all in there exactly. Now, as far as tier pricing goes, and me putting something in for your processor, it's just not possible. I don't know any other way to put it. It's just not possible. I do have the capability to do it, but it's just too complicated. I couldn't ask you to do it, and I can't take time to do it for one user. It's just not. It's just cost prohibitive. So I think we can make something that's going to be accurate to within like 5 basis points, and that's what we're going to end up doing. I'm going to show you one last thing that I think you're going to like, and then we're done. Okay, ready? Here we go. So one of the other really cool things that this does is, let's say I'm talking to Tony, and Tony says, "Oh yeah, I'm doing 10,000. I'm paying $200 a month, all right?" So you put this 200 in, and you click create. Well, guess what's going to happen? Ding, ding, ding. So our algorithm is going to say, no, you're not. I love this. This is great. You wait till you use this with a merchant. This is amazing. We've all experienced this, right? You're talking to a merchant and they're like, oh, I have a really good deal. Oh, really? What do you pay? Oh, I pay like 0.7% or whatever, Well, now you put that in and you just turn the phone around and say, oh, I'm sorry, you know what? It must be some kind of misunderstanding there, because based on all the 1,000 statements we have, there's no way that that's what you're paying. Do you have a statement I could take a look at? So I just gave you the perfect line, and it even shows you, and you could even say to them, well, if you're doing 10,000 in volume, $180 is just from the banks. Like, that's just like true cost that's coming through. I mean, that would mean that you've got a negative 15-cent transaction fee. So unless your current company is paying you 15 cents every time you run a transaction, I'm pretty sure you're paying more than $200 a month. Do you have a statement I could take a look at? So I gave you plenty of ammunition here. However you choose to use it is fine, but this does update dynamically. And so as you correct it and you put different, change the total fees, it'll tell you if it's too low, if it's too high. And here, I'll show you the other side of it here. So what if they said, yeah, we're, man, what if you look at the statement and you're like, they're paying like, $463 or something. You click create. Well, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to say total fees very high. And it's actually going to show you right here that in order for the fees to be that high, they would have to have a 225 basis point markup in order for that to make any sense whatsoever. And then as you start to change this and you're like, oh, okay, well, actually they've got a, 85 basis point markup. And they're paying a 20-cent transaction fee. And so you can do this and it'll start to adjust it, but it just gives you a lot more ammunition to talk to the merchant when you're talking to them. All right, I don't see any other questions. Hey, thank you all so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate it. And again, Wednesday morning, you're going to see the live version at instantquotetool.com. And so be looking for that. And hope that you all have a terrific evening. Thanks again for your time. We will be talking again soon, I hope.